Hello, this is Harsh Desai, and I'm going to brief you about one of the topics of the Chapter 1 Reproduction in Organisms of Biology, Standard 12. Before moving to the topic, we need to understand exactly what the reproduction is. We all know that each and every organism can live only for a certain period of time, and the time from the birth to the natural death of an organism is called as lifespan. Now, if we look at the huge diversity of the biological organisms, we can say that this lifespan can range from few minutes to few days to several hundred years in the different organisms. And this reproduction is the one that keeps that going. Now, reproduction is the biological process in which an organisms give rise to young ones, or we can also say offsprings similar to itself. These offsprings then they grow, they mature, they produce new offsprings, and this cycle is continues from generation to generation, which enables the continuity of a species and thus existence of the species. Reproduction is one of the most important processes of the biological organisms because of the reproduction only the mere existence of the biological world is there. Apart from reproduction, the biological world would not be possible. So, it is very important to understand the reproduction properly. Now, there are few types of reproduction based on the participation of one organism or two organisms in the process. The reproduction can be divided into two different processes, that is asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. When offspring is produced by a single parent with or without the involvement of the gamete formation, this process is called as asexual reproduction. And when two parents of opposite sex participate in the reproductive process and also involve the fusion of the male and female gametes, it is called as sexual reproduction. So, in asexual reproduction, it is not always necessary that the gamete will be produced, but in some of the cases, the gametes are produced. While in the sexual reproduction, it is absolutely necessary to produce two different gametes and then they fuse together and they produce the new organism. Now, moving further, asexual reproduction, as I said earlier, a single parent is capable of producing offspring. These offsprings are identical and exact copies of each other, that is, morphologically and genetically. If asexual reproduction occurs and from a single organism two more different organisms arise, they are the exact copies of each other morphologically and genetically. As we can say, the clones, they are like the clones of each other. The asexual reproduction can happen usually in single celled organisms such as amoeba and bacteria, and it is the belief that asexual reproduction occurs only in the smaller organisms such as bacteria, but it is not absolute truth. In even plant and animals, that too in higher plants and animals with simple organizations also, they have been seen. For example, the simple organism like hydra also reproduces asexually, while bryophyllum is one of the plant which reproduces asexually. So now we will go through the different types of asexual reproduction. So there are these types of asexual reproduction, which includes division, that is the same as cell division. Second is budding, third is spore formation, and the last is vegetative propagation. We will go through these four types one by one. First, we will concentrate on the division. Division is almost like the cell division that occurs in our human body, but if we look at the smaller organisms like bacteria or amoeba, in which it is called as the binary fission. Why it is called as binary fission? Because from a single organism, two exact copies of the organisms are produced through the process of division. As you can see in this animation here, that the process of binary fission carries out, and from a single bacteria or amoeba, two different amoeba or bacteria are produced. There is another method of this division which is called as multiple fission, in which the parent cell is having a nucleus. These nucleus divide multiple times, and then from these multiple nuclei they form a cyst, and the cyst breaks and the daughter cells releases, and every individual nuclei will then uh, work or behave as an organism. So these are the types of division, that is binary fission and multiple fission. So moving further, this process is called as the budding. As in the case of the cell division, the binary fission, it is the exact division of the cell and two exact copies are formed. This process is also almost similar, but in this process not the exact division happens. In the animals like hydra, as you can see here, in animals like hydra, there is a small protrusion comes out of the body and which grows and then falls out of the body and produces a mature organism. And same happens in the yeast. As you can see in this animation, there is a small outgrowth of happens from the body of the yeast and which grows again to produce a mature yeast. This process is called as the budding, and we don't require any gamete formation or involvement of the two different organisms in this process. The next process is the spore formation. uh, Endospore formation, it is one of the processes in which the spores are produced, and the spores are of different types. As we can see here, in sponges the gemmules are produced. In Chlamydomonas there is a one type of algae, the zoospores are produced, and in Penicillium, which is a fungi, the conidia are produced. These are the different mechanisms by which these spores are produced, and then these spores are ultimately the ones who can develop as the new organisms. The last type of asexual reproduction is vegetative propagation, which is observed in the plants. The vegetative propagation can occur through different structures which are involved in this asexual reproduction process, which are called as vegetative propagules. They can be runners, rhizomes, sucker, tuber, offset, bulb, etc. in the different organisms. So in potato, those are eyes. Ginger have rhizomes. Agave has bulbil. Bryophyllum has leaf buds, and water hyacinth has offsets. Now, if we go through this, one of the examples, for example, Bryophyllum, it produces the smaller leaf buds from the leaf, as you can see here, and these leaf buds fell from this leaf and they touch the ground, and from that particular process another plant is produced. This vegetative propagation process also produces the exact copies of the organisms, and this process is widely used in the agriculture by farmers. For example, in the sugar cane and in other organisms, they use the nodes of the organism and produce the exact copies of the organisms, which also saves the time, and it increases the quality of the organisms.